to the show. This show is all about you. Not you, but you and your stories. Because everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Brought to you by JeffSeltzer.com.
Hello and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I'm your host, Jeff Seltzer, and once again, this is my own personal midlife crisis, so thank you for joining me on this journey. I have a pretty fun guest for this week. He's actually a three-time guest, but this is his first time he has his own episode. This will put him one more than both Zeta Steele and Emily J, which is a fun benchmark to have against her, I guess, so that'll be a cool thing. But before getting into my guest and introducing him, I wanted to talk briefly about what happened a few weeks ago when my family and I were flying home from Florida. So over the last 5 or 6 years, specifically during COVID, there were a lot of online incidents that people saw on the internet about airplanes. Random things happening, people getting really upset, people kind of just, flying off the deep end and doing really dumb things. One of those things where you never really want to be a part of it, but seeing it online, you're like, that's a pretty neat or novel, or like, what would I do in that situation? So I guess 2 weeks ago, we were flying home from Florida, and before we took off from Orlando, we're sitting in our seats, and all of a sudden we hear a melee behind us. People are yelling. There's a woman yelling that she has a 5-year-old kid who's allergic to dogs. And right across the aisle is a family of two, I think an older couple, that had their dog with them. And the lady keeps yelling and screaming that her kid's allergic, put the dog away. You shouldn't have the dog on the flight, all that kind of stuff. Eventually, her husband starts yelling and cursing. She starts threatening people. It was really, really pretty chaotic. It's one of those things where, if I wasn't there, I wouldn't believe it. I only really believe it, or I guess don't really gaslight myself, because my younger daughter took an audio recording of the incident as it was happening, which I've listened to a few times. It's just crazy to hear on an airplane before it takes off. So eventually, the family of four with a 5-year-old kid, their extended family comes onto the plane. As they're walking up the aisle, there was an old guy sitting next to me who decides it's time to start video recording and taking pictures and whatever else like that. So I think the sister-in-law or the cousin of the original woman starts taking a swing at the guy sitting next to me with his phone. I put my hand up so that he wouldn't get hit. They're yelling and screaming back and forth. Eventually, the flight attendants kicked everybody off that was in the aisle. And then eventually, both the family of four as well as the family with the dog got tossed from the flight. And they did not make it back on before the flight took off. This whole thing was nuts. I'm a bad flyer to begin with, as most of you probably know. I get motion sick, I get anxiety. So the last thing I need is a fight to break out on a plane. I almost took a shot to the face trying to protect the old guy next to me with his phone. So I don't know. I don't love flying to begin with. This doesn't help any, but it happened. It was weird. Definitely an experience, one that I probably won't ever forget. Hopefully it doesn't ever happen again. The one mistake I did make was, as this was happening, or after it happened, I whispered to my wife, who was sitting across the aisle from me, that I think this is how the movie Final Destination began, where a bunch of people got tossed off the plane. Plane went up in the air, the plane crashed, and then the whole plot was people got off the plane were supposed to die, and death followed them. So she didn't really appreciate that comment so much. So in hindsight, I probably should have kept that one to myself, but I don't know. It happens sometimes. Anyway, I did want to talk before getting into my guest this week, who does fly quite a bit for his hobby, for his job. So before that, I wanted to get into the plugs. So first of all, as always, you can find the show on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod. YouTube is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can email the show directly at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com for all things Jeff Seltzer. You can always check me out at jeffseltzer.com. We also have everybodyhasastorypod.com for some fun stuff there as well. We're on all podcast platforms. We're video on Spotify and YouTube. We are audio on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora. And as of this week, we are now on Pocket Cast, I think it's called. Pocket Cast. New podcast platform, I think. I put it up there. If anybody even knows what Pocket Cast is, let me know. I listened to a few episodes. I was able to put up my first 5-star reviews. So if you find it on Pocket Cast, take a listen, add some reviews if you could, see what we can do to help the algorithm here and such. With that said, I did want to introduce my guest for this week. Once again, this is his third time appearing, but his first time appearing solo, as he was part of a panel the last few times. Please welcome DM Stevens. Mr. Stevens, how are you today?
Great. And yourself?
I am very good. Thank you for joining. So before getting into any kind of conversations or topics or whatever, do you want to give a brief background on who you are?
Yeah, so I am a pro wrestling referee most consistently over the last 6 years. No, 6 or 7 years. Uh, I've worked all over the place, several different states, many different companies. That's as far as my wrestling background goes. I've had the great fortune of working with the best talent from quite literally all over the world. As far as personal life, I love the garden, spend time with my cats, which one of them is rubbing up against my leg as I speak. I have my fiance. We've been together for a long time as she rolls her eyes and gives me a weird look. Uh, yeah, just I'm just me.
Very cool. Well, first of all, DM, thank you so much for joining. And to give the listening audience a little background, so you and I first met about a year and a half ago at
Mhm.
the first PWJ show in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey.
Yes.
To give some background on that, the show, that one, as well as the second PWJ show that I recorded from, are both available on all podcast platforms. You were to throw it out there. That was my first show I ever did live with a bunch of people in a live audience, or I guess a
Mhm.
live venue, or whatever. You were super great. Like, you were very casual. I think myself, Daniel, and you were walking before the show. You're like, "Hey, I'm DM. Great to meet you." So you were very, helpful in the situation where I was, I'd say, a little nervous going into it with all the unknowns and such. So first of all, do want to, thank you and appreciate, for everything you do and how you are.
Oh, of course. Always happy to help, and you always got to treat people, everybody, the same way. So, I mean, it doesn't matter to me if you needed help. I was more than willing to help. So,
Awesome, appreciate that. And as mentioned before as well, you did record. You were a guest on both those episodes, as were many of the wrestlers. So this puts you into exclusive territories. One of the few people who actually was on one of those episodes, plus has your own. So uh, for whatever that's worth, it's just a jacket or a card or something. We'll see what that can do.
there
Um,
you go.
of course, of course. With that said, you said you've been refereeing for like 6 or 7 years. Let's get before you were a referee. So in your early life, how did you first find wrestling? Like, what was it that intrigued you about it, or what interested you, or kind of like, how did you stumble upon it?
So, the story always went from my mother, just channel surfing at like 2 or 3 years old. And I stumbled upon wrestling, and it's stuck with me ever since. And I'm pushing 40, so you could tell how long I've been a wrestling viewer or fan or whatever for. But it was a good thing for my mother too, because she was a wrestling fan growing up. Her favorite was Bruno Sammartino, and my dad didn't really care for wrestling. He and my mom both enjoyed boxing, and boxing was more of his speed, along with baseball and other things. So wrestling, he didn't really care for. But of course, now my mother's like, oh, great. Now he's a fan too. So it was kind of her excuse to get back into it. And she basically, spoiled my obsession, and, just really encouraged it to, the best that she could.
Very cool. Do you have any siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you must have gotten a lot of wrestling attention there, and not having to like fight for it or whatever else like that, which is pretty cool.
I'm thankful for it too, because then brothers or sisters would have been suplexed. I would have been suplexed, probably really hurt. And knowing both of my parents' temperament, God bless their souls, it would not have been a very peaceful household with the children practicing wrestling moves on each other, which wound up happening years later when I would do backyard wrestling with friends. And that was an interesting time in of itself. But growing up, I'm glad I didn't have siblings and just have that chaos caused.
Yeah, I'm sure. I totally get that. I have a younger sister. She's about 3.5 years younger than I am, and we would watch wrestling together from time to time. And I mean, I'm not that big. I'm 5'8", like 177 right now. But like as a kid, I was super small. So like I was still trying the moves on her. She wasn't that big either. So I was kind of tossing her all over the place, and it was fun. It was a great experience. I think she would probably agree, but maybe not in hindsight. Who knows? Whatever. But I mean, it was fun for the time. Whatever, until we got older and she kind of lost interest, I guess. But that was cool. Okay, so you watched it when you were young. You watched it with your mom a bit, which was nice. And then as you got older, I know you just mentioned that you did some backyard wrestling.
Mhm.
I assume that's just the general, like casual in the backyard on a trampoline or with some friends or whatever else like that.
Yeah, I mean, it evolved from like just a handful of us to, it sounds silly to say, but like like a whole roster of
Yes.
people. because word would get around and people would come by my house, which my mother was so thrilled about,
I'm sure.
to watch us and be a part of it. And it progressed to the point where we raised money for a local breast cancer charity local to me at the time. And we actually got into the local paper because of it, actually, a couple of them. So, you could imagine the mixed reactions that had.
I'm
Fellow
sure.
friends and students were like, "Oh, that's great! Y'all are in the paper," and it was a whole thing on NJ.com, which
Wow.
unfortunately you can't find it anymore. But I have the papers. Uh, to the school teachers and everything, like like just I'm like, yeah, I'm on cloud nine right now. Everybody thinks I'm cool for a day, so it was a fun time. It really was a fun time.
That's pretty great. Okay, so as you get older, I assume probably what, like teenage years, you're doing the backyard wrestling. Is that right?
Yeah, I stopped doing it at around what, 18, 17,
18.
18, something like that. Well, because at the time I was then starting to train to be a wrestler.
Okay.
So it's like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore if I'm going to be trying to pursue this. So that's when it
Ab-
all stopped.
Absolutely. So you were backyard wrestling until you were about 18, then you went to wrestling school.
hmm
Where did you go for wrestling school? I know there were a lot in the New Jersey Northeast area. Anyone specific, or was it more of an under the radar place?
Very under the radar. JWA United.
Okay.
Ran at the time by Joe Rules. I was trained by Corey Havoc and Dirtbag Dan, who Joey Janela credits a lot to training him. Actually, we trained together when he was getting into wrestling too. Back, he's going to be celebrating 20 years coming up.
I saw that. Yeah.
So yeah, it was really cool thinking about it in hindsight. But yeah, JWA United, it was out of New Brunswick. All I remember is I was driving through like center of town, New Brunswick, where Rutgers is, to get to where I needed to go for the training.
Right.
So yeah, very under the radar. Didn't last too terribly long, but
Yeah, I
you
was
know.
gonna say I went to Rutgers, I guess late '90s or whatever,
Mhm.
and I have zero recollection of it, but I guess that was probably after. Like, what time period was this at? Do you think?
So it would have been 2000. I had my first match December 2007. So
Okay,
probably, yeah, it was like 2006, 2007 ish that I first went. Yeah.
gotcha. Makes sense. So you had your first match. You had said in December of '07 ish. Uh,
December 1, 2007. Yep.
there it is. Does video of that match exist anywhere?
It does.
Nice.
It does. No, maybe not the first match, but the second match I ever had definitely does. I've shown people it around, and it's it's definitely interesting to look back on in hindsight.
I'm sure I get that. I mean, like, again, I'm 73, 74 episodes into this podcast. Like, it's only 2 years in, but watching or re-listening to my episode from 2 years ago, and I'm like, it's not the same person. It doesn't feel like, right? Like, you feel like you've
Right.
definitely, from a wrestling perspective, I'm sure, grown and changed and evolved and such. Same thing with the podcast. Like, this is very different than it was 2 years ago, and I'm sure 2 years from now it'll be very different again. It's just the way that we work, right? We grow, we evolve, we get better.
It's funny because I watched it again not too terribly long ago because it was brought up,
Yeah,
and I just looked at that person, wide-eyed going through the curtain in their white sleeveless Under Armour shirt and blue Under Armour shorts, kick pads I got off of High Spots,
nice.
and my old wrestling shoes from high school. So, because I have an amateur background too, not high school, more middle school.
Okay.
But uh yeah, just I can't even imagine like what that person would believe me telling them the stories that of what I've been through in wrestling, moreover, since then.
I'm sure. And let me guess, and tell me if I'm even close. Was
Mhm.
your entrance theme by Linkin Park? Because I think around that era, it feels like
Mhm.
about 80% of wrestlers had a Linkin Park song.
It was not. Actually,
Okay.
believe it or not, my first entrance music was by Nickelback.
Very cool. Let me think. Has to be something a little more
It,
upbeat.
it's a
Uh,
deep cut.
okay, it's a deep cut then. I'm probably not going to guess it then. Why don't you go ahead and tell me?
So from Silver Side Up, Where Do I Hide?
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
familiar. Yeah.
I know it was like on a TV show or something. That's not where I heard it from the first time. I know
Sure,
it was
sure.
played on a TV show somewhere. I
Right.
later found out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember first few shows or whatever, after like at one point someone came up to me, he's like, "Is that Nickelback by chance?" And I said, "Absolutely it is." And they're like, "I thought so," but I'm like, but this isn't the Nickelback that I'm used to hearing on the radio. I'm like, that's why you listen to full albums.
That's right.
So, but yeah, it was, I mean, if I were wrestling in 2015, 16-ish, or whenever that was when the big Nickelback hate was the thing,
Yes.
oh, I would have been torched.
What a heel you would have been, right? The ultimate bad guy.
Oh, it would have been great. It would have been absolutely great.
Before you even leave the curtain, all of a sudden everyone's booing you over your music. That would have been fantastic, right?
One match I did in Staten Island, and since my fiance is a Red Sox fan, we went to Fenway Park that year actually. So I'm like, ooh, I'm the heel character now in here. I just brought the Red Sox hat out, and just the chorus of boos from Staten Island people was really loud, and I was opening match, so they were ready to cheer the good guy and
I'm
just
sure.
be an absolute menace to the bad guys. And imagine that Red Sox hat in Staten Island with Nickelback at that time.
Oh, no
If I
doubt. You would have
was
been
if
it.
I was still playing Nickelback then,
Yes.
I'd change to something else by then. Oh, that would have been awesome. Perfect heat.
You wouldn't have made it out of the arena, probably. It would have been ridiculous.
Good thing there was a back entrance that I could have snuck out of. So
That's right. That's right. Okay, so you did that for a few years. You had said you had trained in New Brunswick. When that place closed down, did you get a secondary training school at any point, or did you kind of do your own thing?
I kind of just did my own thing. At that point, I didn't really branch out to other schools
Okay.
because I was doing it was really more or less like a hobby, like once a month, twice a month if I was lucky. I was still getting out there kind of.
Right.
So I was trying to focus on other things, and other things were going on at the time, and it's like, I couldn't really focus on going somewhere else. There were options.
Sure.
Years later there was the Ace Pro Wrestling Academy out of, I think it was Union City at the time. I'm not sure if
Okay.
you were familiar with that.
Not so much. What I was going to say
Okay.
was, so years ago I lived in Lake Hiawatha, Parsippany, and I like
ECPW.
ECPW. That was
Yep,
a big
they're
one.
still there.
I think Little Guido used to train out of there. There was a bunch of guys notable that were there.
Yeah,
Um,
Sunny Kiss trained out of there as well.
Mercedes Martinez, I think, trained out of there. I think I might have seen her years ago.
Not sure.
I thought I
I
did. I could
believe
be
you
wrong.
100%.
Yeah.
I believe you, but yeah, it's amazing like when you really think about it, the people who've come out of there. I mean, again,
Yes.
Sunny Kiss was the first one that jumped out of my head, but there have been plenty others that have too that people wouldn't realize.
Then there was, I remember when I was in college and right out of college, I used to go to classes for IWF. I used to go to watch shows where I
Yep.
know Darren Young came from,
Hmm.
Robbie E, I think, who's now Mr. Stone on NXT. There's a few guys who came from there specifically. But
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing how like now versus let's say 30, 40 years ago, it's so much easier to find a wrestling school like everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I ran into somebody at the gym that they found out that I do the refing and things. They're like, "Oh, I want to try it." Well, if you want to travel a little bit, you could go to Rawway for
Yes.
Wrestle Pro. You could go to New York for
House
Create a Pro,
or House of Glory's out in Queens. Yep.
House of Glory in New York.
Yep.
If you really want to like ease into it, ECPW is a great place to start.
Of course.
Um, there's so many. Pro Wrestling Magic has one now out of East Rutherford.
Gotcha.
It's good that it's becoming easier to find, but you ask some people, maybe they might disagree, but I feel like it's good.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, if nothing else, it's more exposure. People probably have more opportunities to do it safely and to kind of learn the right way as opposed to, teaching yourself and who knows how that can turn out sometimes. So, you know,
and different perspectives too. I mean, another school I forgot to mention, if you out of Pennsylvania, Worldwide Dojo, ran by Cheeseburger.
yep,
Uh, if you train at one spot, all right, I think I'm done here, or not that you ever want to be done training,
sure.
but all right, I'm gonna see if find something else and just learn from a different perspective. So you get many different flavors of ice cream and how people like to do things and how they teach, and it's all a learning experience.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's like mixed martial arts, right? Where people go to like a wrestling coach, they go to a boxing coach, they go to a kickboxing coach. Getting different experiences, different perspectives, you're only going to get better, I think.
Yeah, and there's a million mixed martial arts schools around these days too, which
Yes,
which is a great thing. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Cool. So before we get into how you eventually transitioned to refereeing, so you were wrestling for a little bit. Did you enjoy it? Like, did you have any notable matches? Any notable opponents that you'd like to talk about? Or
Nothing notable, really. I mean, I enjoyed my time, of course, but nothing notable. other than personal favorites, but I'm assuming notable meaning like big names or whatever. Nah,
Sure.
I never
Yeah.
had that opportunity,
Okay.
which is fine. It would have been at that time very irresponsible for me to be in there with any sort of like that much of an established vet. You know what I'm saying? But
Sure. Sure.
I mean, I could have learned, of course, but I was so green
Of
as
course.
goose poop.
To-
It
yeah.
wouldn't have been good.
Totally get it. So, how many years were you actually like training or wrestling before you decided, you know what, let me try that referee thing?
So I stopped. I can't even remember. I wasn't really wrestling all that long, if I'm going to be honest. But let's just cap it at like 2 years, maybe.
Okay.
Give a good guesstimate. And then coming into reffing was kind of like, I don't want to say a favor, but there was a friend of mine who passed away, and they were doing a memorial match for him. And I was asked from a mutual friend to, hey, I know you haven't wrestled in a little bit, but could you do this? And I'm like, I'm in no position to do so. Like I don't want to like, I just really didn't want to do it. And they're like, all right, could you at least ref this match? I said, sure, I could do that. So then one match turned into half a card, then turned into one place for about 2 years, about a year and a half. So that was like 2013-ish. Yeah, 2013-ish. And then 2015, I'm like, all right, I think I'm good. I've gotten my fix. I've refed, I've wrestled. It's not like, I had a storied career to hang my hat on. It's like I kind of got my fix, and I think I was done. And then one person pulled me back in. I'll shout him out, John Harder for Project Diverge. I forget what year that was off the top of my head. And he pulled me in. It's like, hey, you know, I want to have you on. I know, would you be interested? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And then another couple years after that is when I got the itch one more time. Actually going to therapy. This is where my PSA will be. If you're thinking about it, consider going to therapy.
Absolutely.
It changed my perspective on how I felt about wrestling at that time. So from there, I did one shot. I got that offer, not offer, but the door was opened by somebody not even in wrestling who knew a promoter. So once that happened, uh, April 13, 2019, with UWA Elite, then it pretty much was off to the races from that point.
Nice. So you kind of fell into refereeing. It sounds like you were kind of in and out for a while. Did you ever
Mhm.
get any like formal refereeing training? Or was it all just
No,
all on the job kind of stuff?
all in the job.
Yeah,
But it also doesn't hurt when like you're pretending to ref with friends in the backyard as
sure.
well. Like if you're not doing the matches, you're refing it because nobody else was doing it. So, but I always liked watching the referees, back in like especially the ruthless aggression time when, Mike Chioda, I mean that's my favorite. Charles Robinson's another one. Like I paid more attention to it as I got older
Of course.
for whatever reason. So after really studying, not studying per se, but observing how they worked and getting into refereeing again, just observe what I liked
Yep.
and then just kind of like emulate it that way. And then as I went along, I've gotten a lot of help, a lot of uh, you know, good bits of advice and tidbits and all that stuff um along the way. So I'm on the job training basically, which I liked that it came around that way for me because I feel like if I were to do it through school with how because I like to be hands on,
Yep.
and so the on the job training, it's no offense to any wrestling school, but
Of
this
course.
is what worked out for me best, not only out of a stroke of luck, but you know, more hands on experience and getting people like in Showtime. All right, this is what you can improve on. Maybe do this, maybe do that. So then I'm already back out there 2, 3 matches later, practicing and putting into effect what has been advised to me, if you will.
Makes total sense. And I'm sure having the wrestling background helps, especially if you take bumps or whatever in a match as a referee. You know how to land, you know how to make it look good, you know how to sell,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
I also like to be able to make sure that the talents are okay.
Of
That's like
course.
a big thing for me because I've been there, done that. I mean, again, not at the level in which these athletes are performing in right now, nowhere close. But growing up as a four sport athlete as a kid, then going into wrestling, like I know I've taken a awkward bump once or twice, and I I'm like, man, I kind of wish somebody would make sure that I'm okay. I'm not sure if I'm all right. So, and sometimes any athlete of a high level, sometimes they are their own worst enemies.
Of
So,
course.
and not that I understand it to that level, but I understand how a competitive mind can be.
Yep.
So it's like, all right, do we really need to step in? Like, are they really okay?
Yep.
Don't lie to me, you know? So, yeah.
Makes total sense. I mean, and as a wrestler, I guess obviously you probably get booked more if people like you, you connect with the audience, things like that. As a referee, it's probably more a case of like, A, can you fit to the background, and B, can you almost like produce the match properly, right? Because like you're almost like you're the third man, but you're also kind of the producer trying to help, make sure things work as they're supposed to in the ring, right?
Oh, yeah, you're a conduit of information. Whether
Yeah,
you're in your earpiece and somebody's telling you things, through the earpiece, giving you times, or hey, have somebody say this, or like, uh, get the crowd a little more involved, or, this is really slow, it's boring. Not that that happened to me personally.
of course.
I've overheard it, but, hey, this is boring, tell them to pick it up. It's things like that where you're a conduit for information, or for the wrestlers in the ring, hey, do you need it? Like we're talking about sometimes being their own worst enemy. Like somebody took a awkward bump. It's like, hey, do you need like a second? They'll tell me yes or whatever. I go tell the other person, hey, like this person needs like 10, 15 seconds. Like just, you know, taunt the crowd or something, but
Right.
it's a lot of improv too, when you really think about it.
Absolutely.
So, it definitely makes things interesting being that conduit for information between everybody involved.
Of course. So as a referee trying to get like additional bookings or additional shows, is it more like networking? Do I don't know, wrestling owners say like, "Hey, I saw you refing a match. I want you to work my show." Like how does it generally work for you to get like more work?
Everybody's different. A
Yeah.
lot of times it's word of mouth. That's like the best tool for me as a referee. Uh, I won't name drop anything, but I've gotten some bigger opportunities, and I've been told like, "Hey, so and so put you over really strong." Uh, you know, it basically is what led me to bigger bookings and stuff. So you know, it's cool. Like the word of mouth is the strongest
Of course.
piece for. I feel like a lot of referees, especially. I mean, that's just for me. It's worked out great,
Right.
but also just showing up and helping out, early on and whatever. Make yourself visible by being like, "Hey, I'm, here to help and actually help," or in a lot of people's cases.
Of course.
So
And as a
yeah.
referee, I mean, I know obviously people see you do what you do in the ring, but I've seen referees helping out like before the show, after the show. I assume there's other aspects that generally either is expected to do or you kind of do out of a courtesy as being part of the show. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, there's always something to do at a wrestling show.
Right.
Setting up chairs, merch tables, set up the ring, the most important piece. There's always something to do. There's always somebody that's going to need something. You know, Someone's doing the stage production, like, having the set. Hey, I need this and this from my van or whatever. And, it's not just the help that are, extra hands or security, if you will, but it in my opinion, should be all hands on deck. One thing I was taught coming up in wrestling with a couple of people, every little piece makes the entire show work.
Right.
So if that what you have to think of it that way. That's just my opinion. Every little piece makes the whole thing work, and that one little bit of help could just make such a world of difference.
Makes total sense. So you mentioned your fiance earlier. Does your
Mhm.
fiance come to any of your shows, or is it kind of like a different world?
That's a different world.
Okay.
She came when I wrestled, and after she saw me get busted open the hard way, and I had to go to the hospital for 12
Ooh.
stitches, That was it. That was it for her.
Makes total sense. So does she? And again, if I push too much, let me know. Like, is
Yeah.
she supportive? Is it kind of a case of she understands it's your hobby and you enjoy it? Like how does that
Yeah,
conversation or dynamic go?
more or less the latter.
Yeah,
Just try and make some time here and there for something else too,
yeah, totally
for
get it.
her.
I mean, the same, but not really, or whatever. So I've been married now for almost 22 years, and when we first started dating, my wife and I, like, she'd go to wrestling shows, but like as we got older, she never really had that much interest as we got older in it. So I'd go either on my own or with friends or whatever. I get it, right? Like as we get older, we all figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what makes us all happy. So totally with
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you've been reffing now for a number of years, as you said. Any notable matches that you've reffed, or any notable wrestlers that you'd shout out that you're like, hey, that was a great one, or something like that?
Oh God, there's so many. And I'm gonna leave people out.
Of
So
course.
I'll just say I remember getting my first shot at a TV name,
Okay.
and it was Buddy Matthews.
Oh, cool.
That that was with Ace Romero back at Pro Wrestling Magic. And that was like my first real opportunity to work with like fresh off of TV name person. And
Right.
I've worked with other names in the past, not to discredit them, but Buddy Matthews just coming out of out of WWE was white hot
Right.
because where's he going to go next? Like every indie that he went to became must see because it ain't going to be long before he gets picked up by, AEW or somebody else.
Right.
So that show was like one of his first stops on like his brief indie tour, and it was so cool because it was such an electric environment, and you know it just gave me the confidence of like, all right, I'm good with y- you know being able to do you know work with people and not get super nervous. Like, not that I get nervous too often, but like there was additional pressure that I put on myself.
Sure.
So once that match concluded, it was like, okay, we got past this. We could do anything. So yeah, that was a big one for me. That was a
So,
really big one.
so let me ask you this then: once you get past the anxiety of the Buddy Matthews, that's your first time with a TV person or whatever it is. Like, in general, if you take a step back, is it easier or is it tougher, emotions aside, to work with someone like at that level? Like, are they like on autopilot and you just kind of stay out of the way, or do you find that you have to kind of more fine tune, or kind of like where's your head at with that kind of stuff?
Depending on the person, I just like again first getting to work with certain people of certain stature. It forced me to up my game and be that much more focused. I'll look ahead at certain shows prior to getting to the building. I don't know what matches I'm going to get,
Right.
but I know who's on the card. I know what matches are going to be worked. I try to watch and see what certain people do and what they like to do. So maybe I'm a little bit of ahead of the game just in case.
Right.
There's been instances where someone had a question about what does it mean when they say that they do this? Oh, and if they're
Or,
not around to explain it, you could explain it for
like translating a
other,
move or translating terminology or something. You're saying.
or just like there's sequences or something like
Okay.
that.
Got it.
Like they're making it like they're communicating it like a lot of people already know, but sometimes it just slips the mind or something, right? So, I like to be able to know who I'm working with. And I mean, I watch too much wrestling for my own good.
Sure.
So it's really more or less a case study as opposed to anything else anymore. But to
Yeah.
answer your initial question, I mean, I'm grateful for all my opportunities and those who I get to be in the ring with, but I like the additional pressure that comes with being with people of a certain level, or if they're like ascending to a different level, like you're in the middle of doing a match in the middle of their rise, right?
Right.
So it's like there is additional pressure for everybody, for the most part, and everybody cares.
Of
So it's
course.
like, okay, cool. Here's the added focus that I need for this.
Got it. I guess follow-up question that came up in my head while you were explaining that. Have you dealt with talent that, let's say, are from Japan or from Mexico and their
Mhm.
English isn't quite there?
Yes.
Like notoriously years ago, like when Tajiri would wrestle or super crazy, and like their opponents would have to kind of like I guess wrestle off of the feel as opposed to kind of like communicating in other ways. Like how does that usually go as a ref? As you're supposed to, in theory, share information back and forth that may not go as smoothly as you usually hope.
Uh, well, it's funny you bring that up because I remember doing, or I didn't do the match, but there was a tag match at GCW with two Japanese talent versus two Mexican talent, the Los Macizos at the time,
Yes.
and watching that, like, again, such different language barriers, but watching them work it out was absolutely amazing
Right.
because wrestling is pretty much like an international language. It's like music, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We may not know the lyrics of the song, but we know the feel of it. We all vibe to the same jams, right?
Right.
So that's where like my first thing like, oh, when people say that, they really just watching things being put together with that was absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, I've worked with both Japanese talent, with Mexican talent, uh, talent. I can't remember, maybe Portuguese. Their Portuguese was very heavy and it
Okay.
was hard. So a lot of the times you try to communicate with the person who speaks English in the match if you have that opportunity, uh, because they've already gone through the match with that person,
Right.
and now you're communicating with them. All right, like for example, like, all right, there's X amount of time left. I'm just communicating it with one of those people, the one who I can speak English with,
Yes.
and they communicated with like, okay, we gotta go. And more recently, and even working with two talent, which I've done before, who do not speak English, and it's very minimal, but they understand the very basics. Like if I give them numbers,
Yes.
I mean, I can do numbers in Spanish. That's like the most I can do, or a sí or no. Well, no is also English, but never mind.
Of course.
But like sí, gracias, whatever. Like I could do the very bare basic.
Yes.
So uh, it's another challenge that presents to itself. But then once you figure out working with certain people, all right, you may not be able to talk in a regular conversation in either native language. There's certain things you do where like they'll understand, like, oh, like, all right, they got to take it home.
Right.
Oh, okay, they'll get it. Like if you do something particularly, then they'll get it.
Totally get it. We are running late in time, but I did want to ask you the question about collectibles or anything that you like
Mm.
you store or like take from matches, right? Like I know some people will try to get pictures, some people have like certain
Hmm.
souvenirs they keep. Is there anything from your wrestling career or matches you ref or whatever that you collect that you kind of like store or save or kind of say, hey, that's pretty cool?
Nah, not really. I mean, I still have like two old pair of shoes just because I've been neglectful and throwing them out. I'm not really sentimental about that stuff, but I will say, actually, since I'm sitting right here, I could grab this. Being able to be afforded my first 8x10 courtesy of now NHB,
Very cool.
that's a cool thing, so I'll keep that probably for myself and be like, all right, cool. This is the first one that has, you know, been done for me, really, because as a referee, some sell merch, and I've sold T-shirts at one point during the pandemic, but
Yep.
I don't want to say it's frowned upon, but it's just something that I don't do
Sure.
often,
Sure.
if at
Yeah.
all, anymore. So that's probably going to be the one piece that I keep, that I like, all right, this is actually really cool. And I remember that title match too. So it's like I have fond memories with that. So it's going to be, yeah, that's probably going to be the one that I definitely keep.
Do you sell those 8x10s online, or is that like a one and done thing from that show, or like?
It'll when I get out to the next show, I'll probably bring them just in case. I mean, I
Yeah.
have a whole stack of them here still. I haven't really brought it out and about. I
Yeah. Yeah.
either forget because I'm not used to it, or you know, but no, it won't be online. It would be in person only.
Gotcha. So before I give you the opportunity to plug shows that you're going to be roughing at in the near future, I did want to just bring up the story from last summer, which I thought this really cracked me up. For those that don't know, and a lot of people probably know my buddy Daniel, who I go to a lot of wrestling shows with and I work with also, he was flying back from, I think, Chicago. It was him and his mom, and his mom was over from like the UK or Scotland, something like that. He sits down and he sees a guy sitting next to him with a mask, the COVID mask on, as well as a deathmatch wrestling sweatshirt. He looks over, it takes like just 3 seconds, and he goes, DM, is that you? And right away, it was DM Stevens. It was you, which I thought, like, when he told me about the story, I was laughing. I was like, no way. He sends me the picture. I was like, yep, that's definitely him.
So I was wearing a Deathmatch Worldwide hat and the mask, and he sits next to me, and he's like, it's not every day that you see somebody wearing a Deathmatch Worldwide anything in the wild.
Yeah.
And I look at him like, oh, wait a minute. So then I pull my mask down. I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing on this flight? I'm like, I'm just coming back from Chattanooga. So we sat on the plane from Chicago back to, because that was the layover for me, from Chicago to Newark. And I remember he's like, I can't wait to tell Jeff about this. I'm like, and I started cracking up. I said, oh, dude, what would be better is just you take a picture and send it to him. And he's like, that's a better idea. So that's where the picture came from. And I chuckled about that pretty much the whole flight. But then when I saw you and him again in April,
right,
I'm like, how often am I going to be running into one or both of you at the airport? Like, it's a good coincidence, but it just was so funny. My last 2 flights so far, I've ran into Daniel at, bare minimum. And then I see you in April. I'm like,
That's
okay,
right.
This is really cool. It's weird, but it was cool.
Yeah, I think that's Chicago. It might have been a few weeks after we saw you, I want to say, at the GCW shows in Rutherford.
Yeah, for SummerSlam. Yep.
SummerSlam last year. Yeah, and then April was, again, random. I think you were in Vegas a few days earlier than we were because you were out there helping out and doing stuff. But then we were all on the same flight home that Monday.
Monday morning,
I guess. Yeah. So that was, it's just the way it is, I guess. With so many flights, whatever, it's just random, but it's great luck, I guess, right?
I mean, 2 for 2 is not terrible, really.
Pretty good.
I mean, are any of you flying out to Chattanooga next weekend? Like, is that something to look out for?
So I will say, I will not. I will say Daniel's on a world tour for the World Cup right now. So he could be on any plane at any place. He's literally done like 6 or 7 different either games or cities or something over the last like month or so. So if you messaged me over the week and said like, hey, I saw Daniel at the airport, it would not surprise me whatsoever.
That would be so funny if I saw him in Newark, either going to or coming back. It would probably be more likely coming back and crossing paths at the airport. But yeah, that would be funny.
Likely. I'll text him afterwards and see what his schedule is. I know he's in Houston now, where he was yesterday for some World Cup games. But I mean, knowing Daniel, he could be anywhere, anytime. So he just pops up is what happens, I guess. I don't know.
That would be very interesting, but we'll see.
Definitely will. So as you said, you'll be in Chattanooga this weekend for is it ICW?
Well, now they're NHB.
Oh,
so
NHB
98 and 99 will be coming up on Friday, as we're recording this on what day? July 6th, right?
Yes.
Yep, July 6th. So this Friday and Saturday, it'll be at the world famous TWE Arena in Chattanooga, Tennessee. 98 and 99. Looking forward to being back in Chattanooga. It's been a little while. And getting ready to get back to the deathmatch game.
Nice.
It's funny. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, does that air on Triller TV, or is that a different place where it?
No, that's on IWTV.
Okay, gotcha. Familiar with that.
Independentwrestling.tv for those who still watch things via websites. But yeah, look up IWTV. I'm sure you can find it. And it's funny, my last 2 bookings, it's completely different ends of the pro wrestling genres. My last was like a 3-day tour, if you will, with MLW. Now I'm in deathmatch again for a full weekender in a different state, in a different state.
Right.
So it's great, man. It really is. Like I get to have the opportunity to do stuff like that in many different ways. So it's taken me for a ride, wrestling has, and I'm grateful for all of it.
That is pretty great. And shout out to MLW, my buddy Marcus Brandon, who lives down in, I think, South Carolina. He's gone to a bunch of shows down there. So he loves it. He always tells me how great it is. So lots of great talent there too. So
Yep, they'll be going to Charleston, South Carolina, coming up again in September, if I remember right. So
Nice. Are you booked for that, or you're not sure? Or...
not sure,
Okay,
not sure.
gotcha. Any
I'll leave it at
other?
that.
That's fair. Any other upcoming shows that you're aware of at this point?
Yeah, so NHB 100 will be in Atlantic City, New Jersey. That'll be coming up at August 1st, if I remember right. July 24 would be Respect Wrestling out of Richfield Park, New Jersey, the Mecca.
Yep.
I'm just thinking about this off the top of my head. And then July 25th, ETU, also at the Mecca, Richfield Park, New Jersey. I can't wait to be back at the land of the unexpected,
Awesome.
as well as all of my bookings. But that show is going to be awesome, featuring a brand new Key to the East champion. Uh, a one night tournament will decide a new champion. So
Very cool. Very
looking
cool.
forward to it.
Where can people find you on social media or reach out to you if they want to?
At Ref DM Stevens, Instagram and Twitter. I'll never call it X, but Instagram and Twitter at Ref DM Stevens. If I ever decide to get off my butt and stream stuff again, like I used to, which would be the exact same thing. Yeah, those are the best ways that you could keep up with whatever I'm doing.
Awesome. Again, appreciate your time, DM. Really, thank you so much. You've been super generous your time here, as well as the couple times that we've hung out in the past at different shows. So thank you as always for everything that you do. Really appreciate it.
I'm glad we were able to do this long form this time. Thank you for having me.
Of course, absolutely. So with that said, everybody, as always, you can find the show on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod. YouTube is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can find the show directly on all sorts of places. You can email the show directly at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. For all things Jeff Seltzer, you can always check me out at jeffseltzer.com. We're on all podcast platforms, video on Spotify and YouTube, audio on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Pocket Casts. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can probably find this. We'll be back again next week. Really cool guest that I'm hoping to record with later this week. It should come together. Definitely follow the socials to see what's coming up. If you want to be a guest, definitely DM the show. Let me know. I'd love to have you. With that said, see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer.